WOVU LP, Cleveland.
This is Open Door with Vince Robinson. In-depth conversations with people who are making a difference in the lives of others here and around the world. Culture is at the heart of who you are. Know your culture, find yourself on Open Door with Vince Robinson.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Open Door. My guest this morning is Ron Davis. Ron Davis, I know him as a singer. I'm sure he's had a life outside of entertainment and mesmerizing folks with his voice, but I know him as a singer, and we will present him to you as the singer, Ron Davis. How you doing, brother?
I am doing well, and yourself?
I'm doing excellent, and again, glad to have this conversation with you. You know, I've been privileged to witness your singing over the years, and just the fact that you've been so consistent and steady. And before we began this interview, you told me that you were singing with the Cleveland Tops Swing Band, and also you have a relationship to Gabriel's horn. So we'll talk about that, and we'll also talk about the radio show that you're doing on WKHR 91.5 FM. Show that airs on Tuesdays at 5 and also Fridays at 10 a.m. from 10 to 1. So again, welcome to Open Door.
Well, thanks for having me.
All right. So Ron, are you a native Clevelander?
Yes, born and raised in Cleveland my lifetime.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Is there a particular area that you were indigenous to, or you moved different places? So tell us about your life here in Cleveland.
Well, coming up, my family is I had 9 kids in the family, 4 brothers and 5 sisters. And I'm the oldest out of that clan. And we kind of lived all over the city. Okay. Had a chance to live downtown on the east side, far east side. We didn't do west side, but we had a chance to just kind of mix and mingle on both sides of town.
Okay. And what high school?
East Tech.
Oh, East Tech. Okay. You know, Cleveland is very territorial when it comes to the high schools. You know, I learned this as a student at Kent State University because many, if not most of the folks who attended Kent, at least black folks, were from Cleveland. So I got an introduction to Cleveland high schools. So I know folks from Kent by which high school they went to. So you graduated from East Tech, and did you do the college thing, or did you enter the world of employment?
Well, I did a little bit. I did 1 year at Tri-C, but then I had to kind of help my father kind of contribute to our household as far as finances. So I did a lot of that too. Okay.
And what field did you deal with as an employer or as an employee?
Well, I actually wound up working for the city of Cleveland and kind of retired from there 30 years.
Okay. Which department?
I was doing that.
Yeah, which department were you in?
Streets division. Actually, when I left, I was general foreman running one of the largest stations that they had. So I would do City of Cleveland during the day and music in the evening.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting because during the 80s, because I moved here in the 80s, I remembered you working for the city of Cleveland. I didn't know in what capacity, but I was aware that you worked in the city of Cleveland. So you put in 30 years.
Yeah, it went by pretty fast. And actually the 30 years when I was getting ready to retire, I came down with spinal stenosis. They kind of paralyzed me for a minute and had me to do a lot of therapy, surgeries, and so forth. But I was able to still retire with a full pension, 100%.
Mm-hmm. And so,
and still,
yeah, go ahead.
And still, the funny part about all of it is that I was still, once I came out of the hospital, I was in a wheelchair, and my first show was at Tri-C. Brother, we did a show there, and I came out in the wheelchair, did what I had to do, and it was just uplifting for me because the next year I came back, I was on Two Canes and did another show. And I just kept fighting to get back to some sort of normalcy.
Okay. So we'll talk about what happened when you got to that point. But as you were working for the city of Cleveland and, you know, you being a musician, I'm sure that music was a part of your life throughout that duration.
Oh, yeah, it was. I was doing shows. Actually, I was working at the Caramel House, too, at night as a house manager. I started taking guitar lessons with them, and then one day I came out and I said, I saw a room full of people, and where are they going? Well, that's acting. So I went down and tried my hands at that, and finally decided to get into house management, which helped me along the way as far as the music and some other things.
Okay. When did you discover music?
Oh, my uncle, he used to come over to the house when I was, about 14. He would make me sit down and listen to Ella Fitzgerald and Count Basie. And I'm like, man, I don't want to listen to that. He's like, no, sit down and listen to this. And after a while, I started to like it. So the Salvation Army introduced me to trombone. I started playing trombone there. And at the age of 16, I won a contest citywide as far as most improved player on trombone. And it went from there. Music I couldn't get rid of it. It was there. And it stayed with me the whole time.
Okay. So you started as a trombonist, but eventually you migrated over to being a vocalist. How did that happen?
Well, it's just one day when I was coming in, and me and another partner of mine, a fella that I used to work with, he was my business partner, Don Spears. He worked for the city. He was a clerk of courts for the city, but we had a company together doing entertainment. And one day I was just in there messing around on the mic, and he said, you should do this. I'm like, hey, man, no, I'm not a singer. He said, yes, you are. You just don't know it yet. And we started from that point.
That's amazing, man. I do remember Don Spears.
Everybody, when you
and I haven't, I haven't
Yeah.
heard that name for years, and I know he has a son. I think his son may still have a tire shop over there on Lee Road.
Okay.
But yeah, I remember Don Spears, and I remember that he had a relationship to entertainment. As a matter of fact, for some reason, I'm connecting Don Spears with Vels when it was on East 105th Street. Maybe he had something to do with it, maybe not. But I just, for whatever reason, I just have this memory of him being connected with Vels for some reason. But
Vels part, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we used to do shows there.
Okay.
We had a company called D&D Productions. And a lot of the guys that are out here now, they know we put them on shows all across the city. And Vales was one of the major places that we did a lot of shows on the weekend, too.
Yeah. So you put the trombone down, I take it, and then you started singing. You're working with Don Spears and doing other things. How fulfilling was it for you to be able to use your voice as an instrument?
It was really something that opened up. I went to Cleveland Music Settlement and took voice lessons with the opera teacher who was teaching there. And he developed my voice for me. He showed me how to use it and the range that I had. And after that, it was like, okay, I can do this as a vocalist. And just start booking shows and featuring myself. And it just started happening out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm. What was the timetable for you? I mean, you sought out guidance and you got this assistance in developing your voice. What kind of a time frame was it before you said, okay, now I'm ready?
Oh, well, that's still being out front on stage is a scary situation if you unsure. And it took me a while, to become relaxed. And I have to attribute that to the Caramel House. The Caramel House showed me how to perform in front of people, give you the confidence, tell you, and show me what to do when you're out there and you feel nervous. If you are paying attention to the audience, then you're not doing your craft. And I always carry that with me. So it didn't take long for me to say, okay, I can do this. I'm in the game. And then my phone started jumping off the hook and joining different groups. And I performed with Eddie Backus for 35 years.
That's amazing.
The last situation when he passed away, we had planned a party for him at the bus stop, and that day he died.
Yes. Yeah, I'm very familiar with that story, my brother. And it was really amazing that he held on that long,
Yeah.
But you guys did an amazing tribute to him.
It was something else. We put it together, and people it was snowing. We had a major snowstorm, and people still came out. And I have to attribute my growth to Eddie, too, because I studied under Eddie for those years, and Ace Carter was another one that took me underneath his wings, and I studied underneath him. And just having, that musical drive that I wanted to do this. And I was just a sponge. Anything that they would kind of teach me, or music-wise, I would come back the next week and I would have it.
Mm-hmm.
So, have it down because yeah.
Well, I want to flash back to those days when you and your uncle were together, and he was playing. He was playing Duke Ellington and Ella Fitzgerald and those folks, and I don't know what the popular music of that day was. I mean, we've established that we had a few years, so there was a time when we were listening to Parliament Funkadelic and Cameo and stuff like that, but this was not that time. But I want to get back to that, and then we're going to talk about your trajectory on the Cleveland music scene and some of the other fantastic things that you've been able to accomplish musically. We're going to tune back in with Ron Davis, singer, and I just found out trombonist as well, when we continue with Open Door with Vince Robinson right here on 95.9 FM WOVU, Burton Bell Car Community Radio. We'll be right back.
Since 1997, St. Luke's Foundation has awarded millions of dollars each year to positive, impactful organizations that serve you and your community. And now it's time to put the money where your mouth is. So we're introducing Lift Every Voice, a platform created to hear directly from you. We want to know what's important to you and what's important for your community, so St. Luke's Foundation can put all these millions in all the right places. And sharing your voice is easy to do. Go to lev216.org and sign up for the Lift Every Voice email and text updates. It's completely anonymous and totally free. And your voice will impact where, why, and how St. Luke's Foundation spreads that monetary love. Head over to lev216.org and sign up now to help lift every voice in our community. This message is brought to you by St. Luke's Foundation and WOVU 95.9 FM, Our Voices United, a Burton Bell Carr community radio station.
You already know what it is.
This is Artemis Carter with Youth Opportunities Unlimited.
What up? Hi, this is Brian Webster, the MyCom Regional Coordinator for Burton Bell Carr Development. What up?
Hey, this is Camille Hurd of Fellow, for everyone's love of hair and beauty, the first and only social marketplace for all of your beauty needs.
What up? This is Ben Golston and Fred Ward.
What up? Hi, this is Kimberly F. Brown.
What up?
Hi, this is Wanda Harris from Warrensville Heights, Ohio.
What up?
Hi, this is Ken Hawkins Jr. Keep it locked.
What up?
Hi, I'm Lindsay Sims.
What up?
Hey, this is Keisha Allen from Home Repair Resource Center.
Because you're checking out the hottest radio station, period.
Anything that you need, we got to hear at WOVU 95.9 FM. I am your music director, DJ Chris Towles. And thank you for listening to WOVU 95.9 FM.
Welcome back to Open Door with Vince Robinson and my guest, Ron Davis. He is a singer, and we just discovered, as I said, a trombonist as well. Did you put down the trombone forever, or do you still pick it up every once in a while?
Well, actually, I put it down. Before I got injured, I had bought me a tenor sax, and I was starting to play that. And the injury wouldn't allow me to key it anymore, so I wound up selling it. And the trombone is what I'm thinking about getting back into. As soon as I can see if I can find a good one out there on the market, I'm going to get back into playing.
Okay. So tell us your uncle's name, because I don't want him to go unnamed in this interview. But tell us who your uncle was.
He was Daniel Ivy. We call him Uncle Willie.
Okay.
And every weekend, he had I think 8 kids, cousins in his family. And my father, they would come over to the house and play music and just kind of relax. And he would, once he saw me with the trombone the one time, he was bent on, come here, sit down, listen to this. Mm-hmm. You're going to like this. I'm like, no, man. He said, no, you're going to like this. Just sit and listen.
Yeah. So and this was during the 50s or the 60s?
60s and 70s.
Okay. So everyone was listening to Motown and stuff like that, and you were listening to this big band stuff at that time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was listening to it, and I really started liking it. I think the one song was Duke Ellington Live in Newport, 1977, with Paul Gonsalves did this long solo that was really great, and I wound up knowing every note of it.
Okay, and
so much I listened to it. Yeah.
Yeah, and was this what inspired you to pick up the trombone, or was it just that was the instrument that you gravitated towards?
Well, backing up a little bit, the Salvation Army, which was around the corner from my house, I went there one day, and it was like I heard the band, and the instructor there said, would you like to play? So, well, I don't know how to play. He said, well, we'll teach you. And gave me a trombone. I took it home and some books to start studying on. And then, of course, you come back and play in church on Sunday. And I started liking playing out with the brass section. We was doing that a lot. And it just took over what I was doing for a minute there.
Mm-hmm. And the trombone is really kind of an instinctive instrument. I mean, when you play a saxophone, you press a key and you get the note. But but the trombone kind of reminds me of an upright bass, in that there are no frets. You just have to, by feel, know where on that string to get the tone that you're looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an art. You really have to put some time into it.
Mm-hmm.
And once you do that, it pays off.
Yes. Okay. So your uncle and you both had big families, and you're listening to this music and you fall in love with it. And then what happens?
Well, then, I start growing as far as height and tallness, and I was walking around with this little trombone case, and after a while, it was like, okay, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
The music never left, but it's like, okay, I'm going to school. People kind of measure. His guy's 6 feet. Back then, that was tall.
Mm-hmm.
Carrying this little case. What you got in the case, son? A machine gun, those kind of cracks, and kind of put it down. On the other hand, when I put it down, my brother picked it up, and he never stopped. So he's able to play 4 or 5 different instruments. He conducts his own band, and his daughter, Teresa May, is a world-class trumpet player.
Mm-hmm. So you're speaking of which band, the Tops or Gabriel's Horns?
Gabriel's Horns.
Okay. Tell us about that group.
Well, it's a group that started at the Salvation Army. over on Superior, 86, I believe. And it was just playing music there on Sundays. And one day, I came back in one day and I heard them playing. And I told my brother, I said, you need to change this band and do some other things, man. You got a good band. I think if you take time and put them together, you really can do something. And he didn't have a name, so I had, somewhere I was at, and I heard something about Gabriel. And I told him, I said, name him Gabriel's Horns. I think if you name him that, that's a good name. And you get it, the band turned into a good jazz band. And that's exactly what they did, because we'd been together probably 18 years. And we played everything from Tri-C to you name it.
Mm-hmm.
So this year will be the last year. He's going to retire.
Okay.
So we have concerts coming up. And I would advise anybody, if they want to hear Gabriel's Horns for the last time, I know we have one at the Bob Stop on the 4th of August. Then there's about 4 or 5 more that he's going to do towards the end of the year. We'll be down at Trinity Cathedral.
Yes.
I think in November, yeah. Mm-hmm. So,
being in a group of that magnitude presents, I guess, challenges in terms of bookings and venues and so forth and so on. I'm just curious about how you've been able to manage to be out there and to be relevant. You know, if you have a band of those proportions and you got venue owners that really only want to pay small peanuts, you know, it can be a challenge to get bookings. How have you been able to manage in light of that?
Well, most of the bookings that this group gets, the people they don't mind paying for the band. So it kind of keeps it that way. All of the gigs you got coming up, it gets enough to pay the band and probably something left over too. And they just most of the venues like what they hear. And when you can bring a group that's multicultural, you got young kids in with professional people, and they come in and they sound like a professional band, people like that.
Yeah.
So it's not hard. You know, the gigs, he might get 6 gigs a year or 7 gigs a year, but the ones that he gets paid.
Mm-hmm. That's good to know. And, you know, the other thing is that jazz is such a small part of the musical spectrum. For instance, you don't find a lot of jazz on the radio in Cleveland. You know, the station that we did have that was playing jazz on a consistent basis is kind of dialed back from it. You know, thankfully, you know, you have a show where you can expose people to jazz, and I haven't listened to the station, but I'm sure that, you know, it's got an audience that is plugged into those small slices of the musical spectrum. But it seems as though there's just a smaller audience for jazz. Thankfully, again, we have things like the Tri-C Jazz Festival and other festivals, but it's you know, it's not the popular music that it used to be.
No, not when I was coming up. That's how you kind of got to hone your craft. You could go around different nightclubs on the east side, and it was jazz all over the place. And you had old timers there. When you came in, they didn't mind showing you the ropes. You could those clubs kind of disappeared, and you don't have any on the east side, I don't believe.
Yeah.
You know, that you can go to, say, on a Tuesday and sit down and listen to some jazz, or if these senior players are in there playing and you want to come in and you want to sit in, they don't mind. It's not like it used to be. You're right.
Yeah. Well, you know, one of the visions that I have for Larchmere Arts is to be able to do those kinds of things. It's an intimate space, and it's very well suited for something like what you do. So I'm thinking at some point, you know, we may have jazz on a Tuesday or a Wednesday or a Thursday, And it may be a small audience, but it will be an appreciative audience, and it will be someone who really understands the importance of having a space like that.
Well, if you do it that way, you will have a winner, I'm sure.
Yes.
People will come from everywhere. That was one of the things that I used to do with Eddie. We would have a jam session somewhere, and Eddie was the draw, and people would come from all over just to sit in.
Yeah.
And we don't, I think they're starting to have one at the Bop Stop once a month or something. I was seeing something advertised where they have a jam session late at night.
Mm-hmm. You know, I'm just thinking in this moment right now about the cadre of singers that we have here in Cleveland, and I'm including you in that mix. But we have singers like Mike Cady and Evelyn Wright and Reggie Kelly and Shirley Cook. You know, we are so blessed to have talent on the level of you all, and you know, I just think that it would be a great thing if we could introduce you guys to some new audiences and perhaps some young audiences. I want to talk to you about the dynamic involved in being out front when you're singing with a band, and I relate to that as a band leader, but also as an instrumentalist, and I've observed this on a lot of different levels in Cleveland, but I want to get your take on it. We're going to talk about that when we come back. You're listening to Open Door with Vince Robinson on 95.9 FM WOVU. My guest is singer Ron Davis. We'll be right back.
Are you or someone you know in need of help? Here's a resource you can turn to.
The Thea Bowman Center has been serving the community for over 50 years and provides services to help support Mount Pleasant and surrounding communities of all ages. Some of these programs include adult education like GED, computer classes, food pantry, senior outreach, youth after school, and summer programs, and much more. Are you a Cleveland resident in need of a GED preparation, a food pantry, youth or senior programs? Then call the Thea Bowman Center at 216-491-0669 or visit TheaBowmanCenter.org. Call the Thea Bowman Center at 216-491-0669 or visit TheaBowmanCenter.org to register today.
This message is brought to you by the Thea Bowman Center and WOVU 95.9 FM, Our Voices United, a Burton Bell Carr community radio station.
Yeah, no offense, but what were we just listening to?
Oh, just something my previous writer wanted to hear. Want something else?
Yeah, actually, for sure. Can you switch that station to 95.9 FM, please?
Yeah, for sure. What kind of station is this?
What? You're not hip to 95.9 FM, BBC Community Radio? They have so many good shows. Whether it's a talk show, music show, it's so much good information on this station.
Yeah, I'll have to keep the dial right here then, since I drive so many different walks of life every day.
I literally listen every day and find out something new. Whether it's something for myself, my community, or just something special that's going on in the city.
Yeah, thanks. I'll keep it locked right here on WOVU 95.9 FM.
Good, because I'm sure you and all your other writers would love this station just as much as I do.
Welcome back to Open Door with Vince Robinson. My guest this morning is singer Ron Davis, and we were just talking about the dynamic involved in being out front. And earlier in our conversation, you talked about having to get up the courage to be out there, and you got your confidence together, and now you're up front. There's a dynamic that exists with singers and bands. The story that I'm thinking about right now is the story of Rolls Royce. Remember Rolls Royce back in the 70s, and you had Rose was out front, and I guess Norman Whitfield was kind of enamored with her, so she ended up being the face of the band. And then you had all these musicians who were quality jazz musicians, and they wanted to be out front, and they felt a little bit disrespected. What's it been like for you to be out front as a musician, and have you been able to manage that I guess that dichotomy, so to speak?
Well, out front, to me, I kind of, this is my living room. And when I go to I'm inviting these people into my home. So when I go out front, I am really relaxed. I don't care if it's 10 people or 10,000. And just remember what I'm there for, is to do my craft, sing with the band, and hopefully they play the right notes. Well, I don't have to get thrown off. But I've been out front in front of my brother's band. I sing with him a lot. And the Cleveland Top Swing Band, I'm out front with them. And with Eddie, I was out front a lot. So it's just, I always take it for granted. You go out there and you look at the audience, and if people are moving and grooving with you, then that lets me know that they're in tune to what I'm doing. And they come to listen and analyze. And then we just did Juneteenth at Kane Park, this past Sunday. And I had Evelyn and Merle Jackson and Shirley Cook, Pat Harris. Yeah. And that was a fun time. So back to your original question, out front, I just take it for granted because I've been out front so many years. To me, it's just another venue, another stage, see if the people look out there and you say, okay, they're having a good time. That means I'm doing something right.
Yes. Well, the other thing about being out front as a singer is that in many ways you are the most relatable instrument on stage. I mean, and I've experienced this as a pianist. When the piano player starts playing, then it's time to talk.
Okay.
Because it's like, oh well, he's background. But when the singer steps up to the microphone, all eyes go to the singer because the singer is saying words and they can relate to words. They don't necessarily relate to the notes as words, even though those notes do represent words, or they represent ideas or concepts or feeling or whatever. But when you start singing and those words start coming out of your mouth, and it's a song that someone has heard before, that person might be listening to you and singing the song in their head, or they might be singing with you and words are coming out of their mouth. But there's something about a singer that just commands attention.
You have to put it out there to make, how can we say this? The attention, if they don't like what you're doing and you go out there, you have to have your craft down to a science. When you sing a song that people recognize by somebody else has done, you cannot mess up the lyrics. You have to be on pitch, on time, on cue. And when you deliver something like that, then the people, they get drawn into you. And they kind of like what you're doing. They look to hear you the next time that you come around. I think my longevity is that when people see me, I'm singing, I also sing gospel. I'm singing with different groups. Recently, I'll be singing with the Strongsville Community Band, which is a jazz band out in Strongsville. I've been singing some things with them. So it's back and forth. And me being an African-American, when I come out in front of a different style of different band, then I'm looked at too, because I'm the only one.
Yes. And also, what you do with words. I mean, you just intimated that, you have to be on pitch and all of that. You have to sing it in a way that gives justice to the original. But what about the idea of taking that song and making it your own in such a way that people forget who did it first and they just get enthralled with what you did?
Well, you still do it that way. I mean, that's some of the things that I try to do, is that I'll take a song and it depends. I'm listening to the background and seeing where they're at. especially when I'm with a smaller unit, have a tendency to just go off the chart. And I like that kind of action because my ears are in tune. You know, being in this business, I've sang with some good people and I've sang with some very bad people. So when you get out there and you hear the texture and what's going on, okay, this is a good group, they can make the changes. That allows me to be free vocally and to deliver a nice song.
Yes. So you've mentioned all these folks that you've collaborated with, Gabriel's horns, then the tops, and so forth and so on. What is on your musical horizon that you would like to accomplish?
Well, that's a good one. The radio was on my bucket list. They came after me for that one. I played basically every venue here in this city. I was able to put together 4 CDs that were done in the studio, and that was one of the things I wanted to do. And I'm able to play them on my show, which is broadcast worldwide. Probably television. That would probably be one of the next situations. I would like to probably have my own TV show.
Okay.
Where I can really talk about jazz or do a jazz program, maybe live from a nightclub somewhere, and introduce some of the singers that I've been working with, like Katie and Evelyn and Pat, and some of the young musicians that are coming up. That's what I like about Gabriel's horns. He has some young lions in it. These kids are college grads. I mean, they're getting their degrees, and then their whole field is music. They love music, and they can play.
That's interesting.
If you want to hear raw, if you want to hear raw talent, yeah.
Yeah, and that's a great idea, to do a television show involving folks here. It's not really that difficult to do. I think there are a couple of ways that you can look at it. You can look at it from a virtual perspective, or you could go with the studio type situation. But with the social media that we have right now, and the digitization of broadcasting, it can be a fairly easy thing to do if you're really interested in doing that.
Oh yeah, I think that would be a legacy that I would like to leave. Something because being in the business as long as I've been, I've had a chance to just deal with a lot of the musicians in Cleveland that work with me, or they work for me, or we've been on shows together. And it's getting slim as far as the amount of guys that are left. People are, all the musicians are dying off. Jesse Dandy is a great cat. I don't know if you're familiar with him. Yes,
very familiar with Jesse Dandy. My memory of him goes back to the Cleveland Museum of Art when I was working with Cavanna Faithwalker, and we did a few shows at the museum, and he was involved in them. So Jesse's still out there doing his thing?
Well, I don't know if he's playing. He came up to Louis Moore has a project every year, Grandpa and Grandma Festival, and he brings out the jazz legends. I've been fortunate enough to be on that. And the last year I saw Jesse. He came up and we gave him an award. So he looks good. I don't know if he's still playing though.
Okay. Well, I remember Jesse being a purist. So, Jesse was dedicated, or he is dedicated to jazz, and you weren't going to find him up on stage playing an electric bass very often, if at all. But he was definitely married to that upright.
Oh yeah, and along with Kenny Davis. He's not playing anymore either.
Yes. Yeah, I just saw Kenny the other day. We did a Juneteenth program over at Glen Village, and, he lives in that building. So he came down and he chopped it up with Jimmy Alexander after the set was over. And Jimmy kind of shared that at one point Kenny was his instructor out at Oberlin College. So But yeah, I think that's a great idea, Ron. And, you know, one of the reasons that I do this show and I interview folks like you is because I want folks to have access to your story. So they'll be able to tune in to the YouTube channel and they'll be able to hear this interview and others. You know, I've been very pleased and privileged to interview folks like Mike Cady and Shirley Cook. And I would like to interview Mr. Davis at some point. I don't know how amenable he is to that, but perhaps someday we'll get him to sit in front of a microphone or a phone and we'll get his story, because it's a phenomenal story. He did some great things, as you have. Ron, I want to thank you for joining me on Open Door today. And we look forward to some of those upcoming shows, especially with Gabriel's Horns, because this is going to be the last go-round for them, correct?
Oh, yes, that's correct. Well, I want to thank you, Vince, for having me. You caught me by surprise, but hopefully you got enough information on me that you can use it.
Well, we got the information. We just wanted the listening audience to know, you know, something about your life, and I think we accomplished that. So, again, thank you for joining me on Open Door. And again, we will look forward to the next performance.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Peace.
Take care.
We'll be back with more Open Door right here on 95.9 FM WOVU.
Hi, this is Ken Hawkins.
Hi, this is Pinky.
This is T.C. Lewis.
This is Shantae Travers.
This is Reggie Hayman.
This is Bill Silverby Richards. If you're not listening to WOVU 95.9 FM, you're not in the mix of Silverby. Crank it up.
24 hours of golden.
Welcome back to Open Door with Vince Robinson. I have been joined by Jacquie Peoples Dukes. She's the author of SOUTH END Serenades. It's a book of poetry and, I guess, memoirs and photographs. Quite a book. I was able to procure my copy of it, and I've been enjoying it. Thought I would share it with the listening audience. Welcome to Open Door, Jacquie.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. I am so glad to be with you all this evening.
All right. Glad to have you. So tell us about this book, SOUTH END Serenades. You put this together. You told me the other day that you got it published yourself. And it is a book about your life in Kent. So how did this project come about?
Yes, I grew up on what we call the South End of Kent, Ohio, which is a small neighborhood located in Kent, Ohio. And it was primarily a neighborhood that is what we call it the historic South End, and it is first in diversity. It, of course, was a neighborhood that initially was inhabited by immigrants who were coming over to work on the railroads. And as the Southern migration and African Americans started moving up from the South to settle in Kent, Ohio, the immigrants and African Americans, of course, were redlined to certain few streets here in Kent. And so therefore it became a very diverse neighborhood. And primarily, it was the African American or Black neighborhood in Kent. And that is where I grew up, and I actually still reside there. And as a young girl, I was, very enamored with my neighborhood and the people and the residents who live there. And I just have always enjoyed growing up and being in a close-knit neighborhood, only about 4 or 5 streets in total there. But it was a very vibrant neighborhood, a very close-knit neighborhood, and a very diverse neighborhood. Very different cultures, ethnicities, and it just was one where the whole community was nurtured by each other and has a very strong legacy of excellence and just love.
Mm-hmm. How has the neighborhood changed since you've been there?
It's definitely changed a lot. A lot of the diversity, people, of course, the immigrants, as soon as they most were able to leave and spread out against the wider community, they did so. And also many of the African Americans, again, I say they left the neighborhood, but not in a bad way, in a way that again, they had a lot of excellence and moved on and received education and went across the country doing great things. And some of them who also stayed here, just elevated themselves and moved out to homes that were more suitable to their incomes and positions. And so therefore the neighborhood now is not as diverse, is not as, actually changing. And African Americans are becoming the minority as we continue to go on throughout the years here.
Okay, so let me get this straight. So are you telling me that we're seeing gentrification in small town USA?
Yes, I think that might be what we might be seeing. Oh,
wow. That's something that you expect to see in cities like Cleveland and Akron and others. But Kent is a relatively small town. And, one of the things about being in a small town is something that you just kind of intimated, and that is the importance of getting away from it so that you can kind of move up. Just reflecting on time that I spent in Massillon and having a family that involves a mother who had 6 siblings, and all of them except one left, and all of them became successful in life because they left, and then the one who didn't leave was an underachiever. So I'm just wondering if that might have been a similar dynamic there in where you are.
Well, I think it's a combination of that. Also, being that Kent is a university town, many people grew up around the university and had, the university experience of being here in Kent and wanted to venture out to some other avenues, just not growing up and being around Kent. They wanted to see what else was out there. Also, the homes here in the South End are still some of the older homes. Actually, the homes, when they did some research and studied the homes, we know that many of the homes were built out of old boxcars, railroad neighborhoods that were built up. So there's some, very older homes here that are not really conducive to bringing up a family and things like that. So the neighborhood is still older with older homes and things, and not a lot of new expansion house-wise. So I think that has also been a factor.
Okay.
But it's starting to build up a little bit. Now that it has a historic designation, it's getting a little bit more attention. I'm really proud about that. It's getting its due a little bit more.
Okay. So let's talk about this book. Is this the first time publishing for you?
Yes, it is my very first published book of poetry. And it's just been just about 3 months. Actually, around April is when it first came out. So it's pretty brand spanking new.
Mm-hmm. And what's it like for you now being a published author?
Oh, I'm just, the book has been very well received. And so I knew that it was a good book in my own personal opinion because I gave a lot of homage to the culture, the neighborhood, the characters in the neighborhood. And it's very well received because some of the reasons we just discussed earlier, but there wasn't a lot of history for African Americans recorded in the city of Kent. And I did not know that the interest would be so much coming from getting history. People are interested in learning more about the South End and small towns and African Americans and particularly the city of Kent. So therefore, that's a surprise to me. But I become more aware that there really was not, even when I was starting to do my book, I didn't want it to be a historical document. It's more of a poetry, but it's getting a lot of attention because people are learning a lot from my book.
Yes. Well, I interviewed Pimon Rami a few weeks ago, and he talked about the importance of documenting. And he is someone who has been involved in film and theater, and he sees both as vehicles for documenting history. So, as I look through your book and I see the photographs and I see the stories that you've told about people who were important to you as you were growing up, yes, it is poetry. Yes, it is the art of photography. But, at its core, it is documenting your life.
Correct. And I think about the history for African Americans in the oral histories and our traditions of oral histories and being storytellers. And I'm finding myself that, that is what people are seeing in that is the oral histories that are been told to me. I happen to be the youngest of all my cousins. All my first cousins and them are much older than me. So I'm the baby. And so I have a lot of older people in my family who've passed down information to me. And I just happen to have the gift, I believe it's a divine gift of detail, being able to remember details and memories and experiences. And it's been very helpful because the feedback I'm getting is that, oh my gosh, like you brought that up and it all came back to me. And they just like, I would have never even thought about that had you not remembered those details. A natural gift, I believe, particularly when I'm looking at the character of Peoples and kind of doing the character poems, memorial poems. People are like, you just brought them back to life, and they just really appreciate that.
Well, I have to attest to your ability to capture detail because as I'm reading through the books, and I'm just amazed that you can remember the people's names and you can remember the situations and you can write about them in such a way that it kind of puts the reader right there where you are. And secondly, the fact that you have been able to document the presence of black folk in Kent. I mean, when you think about Kent, you don't think about it as being a thriving metropolis that has black folk in it. It's one of those. It's a college town, but you don't think black when you think about Kent State. When you look at the campus itself, and I'm just reflecting on being a student there. We were a small segment of the population of that college, and it's kind of easy to be overlooked. But black folk being black folk, we not gonna be overlooked that way.
Right. Yes, and that is a really good point. Also, that you bring up, I'm finding that women and men who were born and raised in Kent or lived in Kent all their lives. I was doing a reading out, and I'm speaking to one group, and a woman asked me now exactly where is the South End located, and she had lived in Kent all her life. And I was just like amazed that even people who know Kent have never been down here. They took one street down Franklin Avenue, never turned left or right, and never knew what thriving area we had here. And so that's why I think it's been very important that this book has come out, and people also are finding that just because of the nostalgic nature of the book, that people have, it takes them back to their own neighborhoods, wherever that may be. And when we talk about black folks, many of these people, like I talk about, Mrs. Little, she could be a Mrs. Little in the neighborhood in which they grew up because they have someone just like that person. Again, with a lot of our traits in our histories coming up, our hospitality and our Southern hospitality, it shows itself in many black neighborhoods across the United States. So people will recognize and can understand. And even, anyone from a certain period of time growing up in the 70s and, 60s can remember some of these things that touch upon them, particularly like I talk about the different candies and penny candy. Everyone had a little corner store at penny candy. So even if it wasn't mine that I talk about in my book, they had that same type of experience where they live.
Mm-hmm. The book is South End Serenades. The author is Jacquie Peoples Dukes. Jacquie, how can folks get your book if they're interested?
If people are interested, they can email me at jpeoples, JPEOPLES, DUKES, jpeoplesdukes @gmail.com. And then I can let them know. We can make arrangements to get the book to them. I will be also on July 2nd at the Heritage Festival in Kent, Ohio, on Saturday downtown, selling my book. And so those are two avenues that they can get them.
Okay. So the main one is going to be to reach out to you via email.
Correct.
And then you'll get with them and you'll make sure they get the copy. You're not doing the traditional go to Amazon and get my book because Amazon is going to take most of the money and give you a couple of quarters.
That's exactly right. And they also email me again, depending, because I'm doing different kind of pop-ups and different readings and things like that. So I'll be able to notify them if I'm going to be out in public where they also can come hear a reading or either come and purchase a book in person. So email will probably be the best way. and I will, I'm very good about getting back to people.
Okay. Well, it's a great book, and I'm sure it will be a great read for anyone who's interested in reading. Again, the book is South End Serenades, the story of Jacquie Peoples Dukes and her growing up in Kent, Ohio. Thanks for joining me on Open Door.
Thank you.
All right. And thanks for listening today. Know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, make today your best day. Peace.